Hi everyone, I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to be playing around with a lot of two-hole beads today, a lot of the Czech two-hole beads, which is really great and really fun to use them all together. What I'm going to be creating, I'm calling the San Andreas bracelet. Kind of reminds me of an earthquake or a fault line, so that's where we're going with this San Andreas look. You can make this thick, you can make it thin, it's kind of up to you. I'm going to be showing you how to do the thinner version here, which in the middle is going to be 3 of the round duos wide, and then I have a wider version here that is 5 wide that you can see kind of how it lays, almost like a flat Cellini or a flat Cellini spiral. We're going to be using, like I said, a lot of the Czech two-hole beads. So we're going to be using, as our base bead, is going to be our Super Duo bead. That's also going to be our thinnest bead and why it's going to come in at an angle. The Super Duo that I'm going to be using is the Crystal Aztec Gold. It's a really soft golden color. For my Rula, which is going to be my next bead, the bead right here along the start of my fault line, is going to be the White Lila Gold Luster. And then for my round duo bead, which is a round two-hole bead, I'm going to be using the White Vega Luster. I've really been playing around with these a lot, love them. We just got them produced exclusively for us in the Czech Republic, and we've been doing tons and tons of things with them, getting great feedback. If you have color suggestions too, let us know. We have 29 right now and 33 more in production, and we're happy to get more. So these are the colors that I've chosen for all my two-hole beads. And then on the side, I'm just going to decorate a little bit with some 15-0 beads. That's just going to hide a bunch of my thread here on the sides. On my first example piece, I used 11-0s. I think they look a little bit big. The second piece, the 15-0s, look a lot nicer. And I'm using the matte silver-lined smoky amethyst. It's just a very light purple color. And I'm going to close off my bracelet here with a cup button. And I have the purple cup button, which is the Vega Luster, that I'm going to be putting as my cup button for my clasp closure when I go in to make my loop. You can see this one that's kind of the work in progress piece. Usually I do about 2 inches or so of my starter piece to get the idea, see how it's laying, make sure it's right. We're going to be using a needle as well. This is based on peyote stitch, so I'm only going to be using 1 needle. The needle size that you want to use is a size 10 needle. You can also see here it's a good idea to keep an empty tube. Great place to keep your needles. I have my thread burner sitting nice and handy because that's going to burn my threads as I'm working with them. I have some Wildfire beading thread, and the thread that I'm going to use is the 0.006 in the green color. Anytime I use a purple, a blue, a green, I'm always picking up that green thread because it masks and hides really nicely rather than the white, the frost, or the smoke gray-black. Also, I have some super new glue sitting here just in case, and also if you are a gluer after you tie your knots, that's here and handy. And I'm working on my bead mat. It's a felted bead mat. It's a great addition. If you don't have one and you're doing lots of seed beading or bead weaving projects, you definitely need to get one. It makes your life so much easier to have those beads on there. There's also a sticky bead mat that you can get. That's fun to use as well. So these are my materials that I'm going to be working with. And this is what my finished product is going to look like, a combination between the two of these guys, basically. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm getting ready to start, and the first thing you want to do is cut a rather long piece of thread. I have about 5 feet of my beading thread, and on the very end of my thread, I've put a needle on one end, and on the other end, I've put one 11-0 seed bead. That's not part of my project, and that's going to function as a stop bead. I've left a good 8 inches at the end of my stop bead, so that way I can come back and make my loop or add my cup button to that side. What I'm going to be doing to do that stop bead, or what I've done to do that stop bead, is I've gone through that bead 2 times in a circular fashion, and that's going to stop my beads from falling off the end. We're going to start out our bracelet now that our your stop bead is on and you have your needle on. We're going to start out with our Super Duos here, and I'm going to start out by putting on 4 Super Duos that have a 3 of my 15-0s. These are the 11-0s. 11-0s, if you're using those to decorate the side, you're going to use 2. Because I've switched to the 15-0, I'm going to use 3. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of my Aztec Gold Super Duos. And then I'm going to pick up 3 of my 15-0 beads. Once I have those 3 15-0s on, I'm going to pick up another one of my super duos. Again, 3 15-0s go on. Oops. One wants to jump away from me. And then on goes a super duo. 3 15s go on. And I'm going to let those drop down. I need one more of my super duos to go on. But I'm going to let those drop down so I don't lose them off my needle. On goes my last super duo for this row, so it's going to be my 4th super duo. I'm still going to do my 3 15-0s and let that all drop down next to my project. Those 3 15-0s are going to be used to decorate the side of my project, so that way I don't see a lot of extra thread sticking out the sides. That's the only reason that they're there. I'm going to take my needle from the bottom hole in those 3 15-0s to the top hole of that last super duo that I've put on. What I'm doing at that point also is taking my needle back towards the stop bead. I'm going to pull my needle and thread the whole way through there, and then I'm going to give a nice yank because it tends to want to float away from the stop bead and have a big gap in your thread. You don't want that to happen. Now what we're going to do is a very simple peyote stitch. On goes another super duo, and you sew through that 3rd original super duo. Once you've got that in place, on goes another super duo. Sew through the next super duo. So you're always adding a super duo and sewing through a super duo. I'm going to get my next one on here and sew through the first hole of my first super duo that I added. When I sew through this first hole of the super duo, my needle is coming out the hole that's right next to the stop bead. So I have my stop bead on and I have my needle and thread coming out. Same bead, just different holes. What we're going to be doing now, again, is adding 3 of my 15-0s. So I have my 3 15-0 beads that I'm going to add at this point. And again, those are used pretty much just to decorate the side. After I pull those 3 15-0s on, I'm going to pull another one of my super duos. I'm going to sew the opposite way now and away from the stop bead. And when I pull nice and tight, those 3 super duos those 3 11-0s are just going to decorate and form a little curvature, a little picot trim on the end. Again, as I'm coming out around a super duo, too many 2-hole beads that I'm working with. As I come out a super duo, I add a super duo. Same thing. So I'm going to be adding, I'm adding 3 super duos in this row, and I'm going to get ready to add my 4th. As I add my super duo, I'm going to be on an end, so I'm going to add my 3 15-0s at the same time. Let that all drop down next to my project. Oh, my 15-0s want to be stuck here. And I'm going to sew up then through my super duo towards my stop bead. So I'm changing the direction again. So you're constantly, whenever you're doing peyote, you're zigzagging away and towards that stop bead. For this peyote also, it's going to be easy for you to remember that it is an odd count basically because we have 3 and then 4 that we add. So one row we're adding 3 here for the middle, the next row we're adding 4. 3, 4, 3, 4. When I started to do this sample, I made it with basically 5 rows of peyote of the super duo. What I liked better, and to get that San Andreas look and that earthquakey look, was actually just to do 3 rows. On the sample piece, then I did it wider, and we did 3 rows and then wider in the middle. Actually, one of my staff members in our Chambersburg store actually made this sample, so he made it a little bit wider. I'm going to keep it the same distance basically that I did for my sample, and I am going to do 3 rows in between, so just like was done here at the start. Now that we've got our 3 rows of super duos in place, we're going to sew back up towards the stop bead, adding in the rouleaus. If you haven't worked with rouleaus before, the rouleaus are basically a tubular shape of the super duos. So we've got all different shapes of our round and our barrels and our little rice shapes, tons of different shapes of the 2-hole beads. So I'm just going in right now and adding a row of my rouleau beads, just like I did in the same peyote fashion. And then what you're going to do is add your 15 O's. So I've got my rouleaus on there, 15 O. I'm going to add my rouleau for my next row. And then I'm going to go through and coming away from the stop bead, sewing down towards me, I'm going through the next rouleau bead. On goes another rouleau. And I'm basically doing 2 rows of this. Because the rouleau is wider than the super duo, that's what's going to force it to buckle up and to create that earthquake look. Again, as I get ready to add my last rouleau in place, when you're on this side here, that is away from the stop bead, you're always going to add the 3 beads on the side. And these are my 3 15 O's. And then I'm going to go back up through the second hole of whatever bead is there. As you pull tightly too, you can see that buckling already starting to happen. Again, there's really nowhere for it to go because you're getting wider beads going in, and that's what's creating that buckle. That's what's going to create that fault line as we work with it. Now I get to use my round duo beads. So I'm going to put on a round duo bead, sew through the rouleau bead that's next, and we're going to be putting on 3 round duos in the same fashion, putting on a bead, sewing through, putting on a bead, and sewing through. Once you have those 3 round duos in place, we're going to go in and add a rouleau. The rouleaus are going to basically frame those round duos. When you're looking at it here, the round duos stick up a little bit, but the rouleaus are going to act as a frame. So here on the side then, I'm getting back to my rouleaus, adding 3 of my 15 O seed beads. And then I'm adding 1 of my rouleau beads. Letting that all drop down next to my project. And I'm going to sew back through the round duos. This time I'm sewing away from the stop bead. And when I'm doing this, I'm going to pull nice and tight to really create that fault line. Again, another rouleau goes on. Sew through the round. Rouleau on, sew through the round. So every time I'm doing this, I'm only ever going to have 3 round duos down the middle. Again, if you want to do it wider, you can do it wider. It creates a little bit of that curve. If you've ever done a flat Cellini spiral, you can try to change it up a little bit. The curve happens there too, going from smaller to bigger, or going from a freeform peyote because you're changing the size of the beads a lot and pulling in one direction. On goes my group of 15 O's. So back through. Again, at the corners, always pull tight. And now I'm going to do my last little row of rouleaus. So 2 rouleaus are always going to be on the sides of the round duos on either side. And then I'm going to do those 3 rows of my super duo beads. This rouleau has a little bit of a blockage in it. What you can usually do is take your needle and just kind of poke at that and poke it out, and it'll come free. Sometimes the different coatings that they put on them, the Picasso or the lusters, will get caught in there, and you just need to punch it out a little bit. Sewing back, so you're just continuing. And you can see it's really starting to kind of wave every which way. Once I'm done here, I want to give a nice tight pull and force the middle really to be what sits up. On the side then here, after I have my 2 rows of my rouleaus, I'm going to be adding my super duos back in. I do then my 3 rows of my super duos. and then just start this same process again. So right now I'm adding my super duos in. When I get to the side again, I want to make sure to give a nice tight pull, adding my super duo, add my 3 15-0 beads just to decorate the sides a little bit. If you don't like that look again with the 15-0s, just keep them off. You'll see a little bit of your thread, but it won't kill you. And pull nice and tightly, and then I'm getting ready to add my second row of my super duo beads. This time 3 go on. And as you get to this second row of the super duos, that's really when you're going to want to give it a pull to get those beads really to pop up in the center. You can see a little bit on the side here if I hold it. It's almost like a turtle back the way that it sits. I'm going to add my last row of my super duos, and then I'm going to start to repeat my pattern. So on go my 3 15s, my super duo, and I'm going back down the other way. Because again, it's just peyote, so I'm just zigzagging up and down. So I got my caliper out now that I'm done this row, just to show you guys the extreme difference between the center row, which is about right about 26 millimeter wide, to when you're coming into the super duo, you're getting right about 15 millimeters. So that's what's creating that buckle effect that we're going for, and creating that center to stick up as you're wearing it. Now that I'm done my 3 rows of my peyote with my super duos, it's back to rouleaus. And I do my rouleaus going down. Again, just 2 rows of rouleaus. And then we get to do our round duo beads, 2 rows of rouleaus, and continue. So the pattern is very simple. If you are looking to do a fun peyote pattern, but you're not willing to count the number of beads per row, this is a great bracelet for you to work on. So I'm going in here. I'm then going to add my 3 15s, add my rouleau bead, come back down. You can see already that it wants to do that buckling because we're getting wider again. So that center is always going to kind of pop down, and the middle is going to pop down, and the centers are going to pop up. As I come back through, I'm going to add my next row of rouleaus, go to round duos, and continue. So you're just going to basically put me on pause and continue working your peyote stitch. And then we'll come back together when we have a little bit more finish, so I can show you how to get ready to add your cup button clasp and a loop for your closure. If you don't have any cup buttons, or you want to use something different for your clasp, that's fine too. It will be pretty much the exact same way that you would add it. But the cup buttons, if you do have trouble getting bracelets on and off, the cup buttons are really great because they're very easy to work with. You can see I'm adding these round duos here. And then I'm going to go back after I add this row of my round duo bead. I'm going to go back now and get ready to add my next set of my rouleaus in. So here's showing the progression that I've been doing, and I've gotten pretty far in my bracelet. I'm just keeping to the pattern, adding on, and adding those round duos in the middle on the sides of 2 rows of the rouleaus with the 3 rows of the super duos in between. I'm going to keep going again, and then we'll get ready to add our cup button as well as make our loop for our clasp. So I've reached the length of my bracelet here, and this is going to be about a 6 3/4 inch bracelet. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rises, so 6 of those little fault lines that I'm going with. When I get to the end here, I'm going to get ready to put my cup button on, and I've switched to my Aztec gold color. I just liked that a little bit better, and I'm going to be working with those 15-0 beads as well. When I'm working with them, I'm going to repeat what I did at the start, where I have 3 of my 15-0s in between each bead here. And I've ended with my super duos just like the beginning. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to add 3 of my 15-0 beads, and then I'm going to sew through the next super duo in line. When I'm coming out the middle here, I'm going to add 3 of my 15-0s. Then I'm going to go up the back of my cup button there, coming out the top. When I'm out the top, just to add some of that little purple flare to the top of it, I'm going to use 3 of my 15-0s on the top, and then I'm going to go down my cup button on the other side. I'm going to add 3 more 15-0s. So altogether I've added 9 15-0s, 3 on each side of the cup button, and then 3 in the middle of the cup button. So down through, or back through my next Super Duo. Give a little pull here. I've got a little knot in my tail. Come on. There we go. When you give a nice tight pull, then what's going to happen is it's just going to create a little platform area for you to have that cup button in. Once I'm out this other side, then I'll go 3 more of my 15-0s, sew through the last Super Duo. I'm then going to reinforce my whole clasp by going back through. To get there, I'm going to add 2 15-0s on the side, and I'm going to go back down the Super Duo, going back to the middle one. Coming out of that, I'm going to go back, whoops, the one on the other side, sorry, whole way across there. And then back up through here, and back up the whole way then, up through all those 3, around the 3 at the top, and down the 3 on the other side. So I'm going back up through my cup button, and I'm coming down. One of our staples here in our Chambersburg location is the fire trucks. So if you ever hear the fire trucks coming through on a video, that means I'm recording in our Chambersburg store. They come through and they're pretty loud. And once I get to the side here, I'm going to go through and I'm going to do little sewers or side knots, catching onto the thread in the middle, picking up and doing a little bit of knots there. I'm going to come to the middle then of my project and do the same thing, doing some knots towards the inside. I'm then going to stop and cut off my thread, switch over to the other side, and we'll get ready to add the loop. So I've gotten my button on this side, and I've come back to the starter bead or the stop bead size, and I'm actually going to take off and sew back through my starting Super Duo and my first 3 beads, and I'm working my way back to the middle. I'm going to go back through that Super Duo, and what I'm going to do is make my loop on this end. That's going to bring it out at the exact same place as the cup button is on the other side. So I'm going to stick about 34 beads on here, and once I have those on, then I'm going to go in and kind of sew it in place and create that loop. So I have 35 beads on here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through the second to last bead. So the second bead that's on. So I'm coming down there, and what that's going to do is create that loop there for my cup button to slide into. I'm then going to add 1 more of my 15-0s, sew through my Super Duo that I just took the needle out of, add 3 more beads, sew through the next Super Duo, and then I'm going to reinforce. Just like we did on the other side, I'm going to take 2 of my seed beads of my 15-0s, sew back through the Super Duo the whole way till I'm coming out one of the sides of them. I'm going to reinforce that whole loop then, and I'm also going to tie off to the side just like we did to create the first side. And anytime you have a clasp or a closure, you always want to make sure that you have at least 2 threads going through, so that way you make sure where there's tension that you're not just relying on that 1 thread. With the 15-0s, you may need to switch out to a size 12 needle because it gets a little bit tight, or you can just grab your pliers and take a little grab with the pliers to pull that needle through. But I'm going to reinforce this and then tie off that thread. So whether or not you make it wide, you put 5 in between, or you put 3, you make it a little bit more narrow. The San Andreas bracelet is really fun to work with, and it gives a fun kind of buckling look to all the 2-hole beads. It's a great way to use those 2-hole beads, all those Czech products, and to have fun playing, and it goes really quickly actually because there are 2 holes and because the beads are a little bit bigger. But when you lay it on your wrist, it's going to have a nice look to it. I have a petite wrist, so it looks a little bit larger on me, but it's a fun bracelet, fun use of all those 2-hole check beads, and hopefully you get a chance to play around with a bunch of the super duos, the rulas, and the round duo beads. Also, the cut buttons add a nice little flare to the end. If you do make it bigger, I would suggest using 2 cut buttons. It kind of gives a nice look then to the length to have one on either side. So, thanks a lot for watching. You can check us out at PotomacBeads.com. You can gather materials there. You can also shop at our stores. You can visit our locations page on our website and check out which store would be closest to you. So you can stop in, grab all these fabulous products, meet our helpful staff, and just say hello and get some more beads. You can also subscribe to our YouTube page, so when we get new products, new videos, new class examples in, we can show them to you right away and you'll be notified of that. Thanks a lot for watching, and enjoy making this San Andreas bracelet.